Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the NBA 2K roster review. I'm your host, John Markish, also known as the Real 2K Insider. We've been doing the show for about a week now, so if you've been with us for that whole time, thanks, much appreciated. And if you're new to the channel, the 2K roster review is going to cover what's going on around the NBA and how it correlates to your NBA 2K roster. The roster that's going to be used in this video is my roster, the Real 2K roster. It's on the PS4. You can find it by searching Real 2K or my username, which is displayed above. It's also just on the top downloaded list anyway. It's like in the top 5, so should be able to find it pretty easily. We're going to be covering games from December 29th, or I think actually it started December 30th. Whoops. So there were 6 games. The Heat beat the Bucks 119-108. The Brooklyn Nets beat the Hawks 145-141. The Celtics blew out the Grizzlies 126-107. The Hornets also blew out the Mavericks 118-99. The Lakers beat the Spurs 121-107. And the Clippers also blew out the Blazers 128-105. So lots of double-figure wins on that day. We're going to start off with the Bucks. Not a ton of notes for them. Giannis triple-doubled in this game with 26 points, 13 rebounds, and 10 assists, but the Bucks got a subpar night from Chris Middleton, only 8 points, but 7 rebounds and 9 assists. He only shot 3 of 15 from the field, over 4 on threes, so coming back down to earth a little bit as he'd been shooting lights out in the prior 4 games. And a couple lineup notes. This was the first game that DJ Augustine came in for Dante DiVincenzo, which shifted Drew Holiday to shooting guard. So I did add back Drew's second position. And the Bucks also used Giannis' brother Thanasis as his backup in this game. Thanasis can play 4 positions. Last year I had him at point guard and shooting guard, or point guard small forward I think, and now I've got him at shooting guard power forward. So I had changed his secondary position as a result of this, as the Bucks are a little thin at the 4 to begin with. And he has the same build as Jaylen Brown, who likewise sees time at the 2 and the 4 sometimes. So this is just kind of the direction that the league is headed. He's a good ball handler, but because he's a lacking shooter, it does make sense that he'd be at the 4 sometimes. Okay, so speaking of Jaylen Brown, he had a career night, 42 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, shot 15 of 21 from the field, 7 of 10 on threes, 5 of 6 from the free throw line. He had 42 points in 29 minutes, career high through just 3 quarters. He probably would have had 50 if the game was closer. So notes for this game is Jeff Teague. He started as Tristan Thompson rested, which bumped the rest of the team up in the lineup. So typically they've been starting Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum at the 1, 2, and 3, and because Teague started, Smart bumped up to the 2, Brown the 3, and then Tatum the 4, which is closer to the type of lineup that they had last year. But I think that was only because of the Tristan Thompson rest day, and that they won't stick with that moving forward. Robert Williams, he picked up Tristan Thompson's minutes, and he had 6 points, 10 rebounds, and 4 blocks. So pretty solid outing. Time Lord usually produces when he gets time. And even though they started with the small lineup in this game, Grant Williams, he came in for Tatum with... Grant Williams, he came in for Tatum, and Peyton Pritchard, he backed up Teague at point guard. But in the second quarter, they ran Teague at the 1 again and bumped Pritchard up to the 2 and ran Tatum at the 3. So I took that as a signal that even when they're starting Tatum at the 4, they're still going to try to get him minutes at the 3, which wasn't the case last year. So I think we are still going to stick with Tatum as a small forward for his position this year. So going over to the Clippers, they're 4-1. They have the best record in the Western Conference. They blew out the Blazers by 23 points. Kawhi returned from injury, and he dropped 28 points and had 7 assists. Paul George, he had 23 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists, was 8 of 15 from the field, 4 of 9 on threes. His season average right now is 23, 6, and 6. He's shooting 54% from the field, which is 10 points better than last year. He has an absurd true shooting percentage. Absurd true shooting percentage of 70%, which last year was 58%. So on the same volume, so he's shooting at a ridiculous clip right now. And his assist percentage is 30%. He's getting assists on about 30% of his possessions, which is the best of his career right now, and it's up from 21% last year, which was his previous best. So his assists are up 33% from the under coach Tyronn Lue. So we're gonna edit his ratings a little bit. He's shooting the mid-range more efficiently. Last year was kind of like a low point for him in his career, so we're gonna bump that. And then his pass ratings, we're going to also bump a little bit. And that pumps him to a 91 overall, which is the number 2 rated shooting guard in the league. So, Paul George, he says a lot of questionable things in the media, right? But, and in general, when people act arrogant, as the Clippers did last year, you know, we do get joy out of seeing their comeuppance, right? As George and Kawhi had a dismal Game 7 and then proceeded to make excuse after excuse for it. So, but we also have to give credit when they take those life lessons and they're able to learn from them. So, forget about the 50-point blowout versus Dallas that came in the previous game. We've already seen that games like that are going to happen to NBA teams this year. The Heat, they got blown out by 47 to the Bucks, and then just came back and beat them by 11 in the following game. So that's just going to be the nature of this condensed NBA season. Sometimes, you know, teams are going to be caught with their pants down. You know, don't read too much into it. The Clippers, they've won the rest of their games in convincing fashion. They've played four playoff teams in their first 5 games, and they're 4-1. So they have the best record in the West, and they're number 2 in the NBA, as the Magic are the only undefeated team at the moment. So someone wrote on Twitter that Tyronn Lue has optimized the Clippers. I couldn't find the exact tweet again to give proper credit for it, but I generally agree with the sentiment. Doc Rivers has always been a coach that makes the players fit his system, whereas it feels like Lue is just letting his stars have more offensive freedom, and that's something that reflects in George's stat line. So I think that some players like Tobias Harris, for example, would benefit from a rigid system and structure, as it prevents them from going into like some of their more negative option. You know, they need that structure in order to play efficiently. Whereas someone like Paul George is going to benefit from being able to freelance a bit and be able to look for the shot that he wants rather than what his coach wants. So that's my spiel for the Clippers, and keep an eye on Paul George as I think he was 3rd in the MVP vote the season before he joined the Clippers when he was with the Thunder. So, and then he was recovering. He had shoulder surgery, and he kind of spent last year like banged up a little bit. So if he's back to being the player that he was with the Thunder, that's probably a 93, 94 overall player, and the Clippers are going to be scary if they've got 2 players that are that good. Going over to the Grizzlies, who were blown out by the Celtics. They are the walking wounded right now. They lost Grayson Allen to an ankle sprain after only 12 minutes. So, they only had 10 active players for the last game, and if Allen has to miss time, they're down to 9. And NBA teams require you to have to suit up 8 players in order to play. So that's something that they might lose some games if they aren't able to get some guys in recovery. Desmond Bane, he took advantage of Allen's absence, and he had 16 points, 4 rebounds, shot 6 of 11 from the field, 3 of 6 on threes, and he got extended run with Allen out and started the 3rd quarter, so I anticipate that he would start if Allen does have to miss time. and I got around to editing him. I have him at 75 overall. 2K Sports has him at 70. He was a 4-year college player, so he's more of a finished product than other rookies. But as a result, he also doesn't have the highest ceiling, so I'm pretty comfortable. Even though he was the 30th pick in the draft, because he was a 4-year player, I think that 75 is totally fine. And I didn't realize in the last episode that when discussing Ja Morant replacements that D'Anthony Melton is also out at the moment due to COVID protocols. So the Grizzlies ended up using Kyle Anderson as a point guard in this game, which is, he can't defend the position, but he can, he's always been a good passer. So he had 9 assists, but he also had 8 turnovers in this game. Definitely not an ideal, situation for the team. And John Conchar, he actually ran the point during garbage time, as they just don't really have anybody. And he had 9 points, 5 assists, so at least he played well in those minutes. Garbage time specialist. He played really well in the G League last year, so he's somebody who definitely can play, and that's why the Grizzlies gave him a 4-year deal. 4-7 from the field, played 23 minutes, so he's probably going to get a lot more playing time if Grayson has to miss time. And Sean McDermott, he made his debut and had 4 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists in 21 minutes of garbage time. So going over to the Hawks, they had their first loss coming up against a good Nets team. The game had a playoff atmosphere, as it was a back and forth game in the fourth quarter, and a very high scoring game, 145 to 141. So let's actually start with the supporting cast for the game. John Collins, he lit up with 30 points and 10 rebounds. Cam Reddish, he had 20 points, 5 of 11 shooting, 8 of 10 from the free throw line, so might have to bump his rating up a little bit. And Bogdan Bogdanovic had 22 points, 6 for 11 on threes off the bench, and I'm cementing him as DeAndre Hunter's backup this year, as it doesn't seem to really matter whether or not Gallinari is healthy or not, although Gallinari, I think, did he miss this game? Oh, no, he didn't miss this game. He left after 3 minutes due to an ankle sprain. So Solomon Hill ended up picking up minutes in his stead, and he'll probably absorb all those rotation minutes if Gallinari has to miss any time. And Trae Young, he had another great game. 30 points, 6 rebounds, 11 assists. He was 8 of 18 from the field, 0 for 4 on threes, 14 of 16 from the free throw line. Trae's attempted 62 free throws in 4 games. It's literally 16 free throws a game at point guard on 17 field goal attempts per game. So he's practically 1 for 1 on field goals versus free throws. Those are James Harden type numbers, which is also completely unheard of for a guy his size. The way that Trae is getting to the free throw line is whenever he comes off a pick and roll, whenever he comes off the screen, he's stopping short, and the defender that's going over the screen is running into him behind him. So Steve Nash was a little frustrated with that line that he was taking, as it's not really the defender's fault, but the defenders league-wide are going to have to adjust to this and maybe start going under the screen to compensate, or the player that's coming, that's helping off the screen has to do a better job of cutting off Trae Young. So the Hawks right now are actually, so before I get onto the Hawks, let's actually update Trae Young's rating. Oh, never mind. Looks like I actually did. I gave him a +5 layup and +1 free throw, and that bumped his overall rating to 93, which I believe has him on par with Steph Curry and Dame Lillard now. So, yeah, talking about the Hawks. They're the number 1 offensive team in the league at 124.1 points per 100 possessions, which is absurd. Dallas set the all-time record last year with 116.7. So the Hawks right now are 8 points better than that efficiency-wise. But they're also 27th defensively right now in defensive efficiency. And they've ranked 27th the prior 2 seasons as well. So even though they're firing on all cylinders, they haven't improved defensively over the last 3 years, basically since Trae Young joined the team. So, their upside as a team is going to be limited as long as they only play one side of the ball. Trae is the modern Steve Nash, and perhaps a cross between Nash and Steph Curry might be the best way to evaluate him. He's undersized, but a transcendent offensive savant that is limited in how he can impact a game defensively. And it is worth noting that through his first 4 games, he has 0 steals and blocks. So he isn't really able to contest shots, and he's not really getting into passing lanes, and even might be taking a little bit of a break on defense because of how much of a load he has to carry on offense. So the Hawks, after the last couple of years they've had, they'll be happy to make the playoffs, right? Similar to a young Warriors team pre-dynasty that had no idea that contention was in their future. For the Hawks to take the next leap beyond that, like the Warriors did, they need to establish a defensive identity. They need a guy like a Gallinari or a Bogdanovich to become a Klay Thompson or an Andre Iguodala. They need a guy like an Andre Hunter or John Collins to be a Draymond Green. They need a Clint Capella to be an Andrew Bogut. They also might need a coach who's going to hold them accountable on that end. Maybe Lloyd Pierce isn't the guy for that. I don't know if Nate McMillan is, but, that's something that the team is going to try to figure out this year. And now, to be fair to the Hawks, they did bring in Chris Dunn, who hasn't been able to play yet due to health issues. And they did draft Onyeka Okongwu, who's probably the best defensive player in the draft, and he likewise hasn't taken the court yet. So, and they're also starting Cam Reddish and DeAndre Hunter, with the hope that they turn into exactly that kind of two-way player. So if the Hawks make the right moves in the next 12 months, we might be looking at the next NBA dynasty. Please keep an eye on them over the next year and a half, because they could very easily be at the top of the conference in a very short period of time. So going over to the Heat now. A couple notes from their win against the Bucks. They were without Jimmy Butler again, so they started Avery Bradley at the 2, bumping Duncan Robinson up to the 3, and they started Iguodala at the 4. So Mo Harkless and Myers Leonard both started last game, and they were both on the bench for this one. Bam Adebayo, he had 22 points, 8 rebounds, and 10 assists. So I think I went on a little bit of a tangent in the last episode, and we're going to go on the same tangent again. Pass ratings need to start counting towards overall for big men, because right now Bam is one of the best passing bigs in the league. It's heavily tied to his value as a player. And right now, players like Andre Drummond and Hassan Whiteside, and even Dwight Howard, they need to have penalties to their ratings, because as centers, Bam's not unique in this. There are tons of bigs who are great passers. If you're not a good passing big in today's NBA, you're hurting your team. It doesn't make sense for Bam to have a similar overall rating to like an Andre Drummond or a Jonas Valanciunas, because that's where he's at in my roster, the way that the formula calculates overall. The skills of the big men from 10 to 20 years ago are not as important now as the skills, the perimeter skills, like even three-point shooting as well is something else that they need to start counting more for the center rating. So Goran Dragic, he had 26 points in this game. I have him at 85 overall. I don't remember exactly what 2K has him at. I think like 80, 82 maybe. I bet everyone thinks that's weird, as that is pretty high for him, but I feel like I'm just I've been ahead of a curve, as ever since the playoffs he's been this caliber of a player, and even though he's coming off the bench, he's essentially a six-man of the year caliber backup. His numbers are basically on par with what Lou Williams has been doing the last couple of years, if not even better. So that's where I've got Dragic at. And the offense, you know, when he comes into the game, it just kind of changes the complexion of things, as they do run a little positionless in the starting unit, and then they get an actual playmaker coming in to really direct things. That's been really working out well for the Heat. Kelly Olynyk, he had 15 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 5 of 10 from the field, 3 of 7 on threes. He played 28 minutes. He's been in and out of the lineup. As Myers Leonard, when Leonard starts, Olynyk typically doesn't play much. Leonard didn't play in this game. Harkless, he only played 9 seconds. So these three guys are just going to be rotating a little bit to start the year until Spoelstra figures out exactly who he wants to go with. And Gabe Vincent made his debut, and he backed up Hero in the first half, as the Heat went with a 3-guard alignment of Dragic, Vincent, and then Kendrick Nunn. So one of those guys was the small forward. Maybe you count Vincent since he's 6'3", 200. And then in the second half, Vincent backed up Bradley in the second half, and Nunn came in for Duncan Robinson that first quarter. So I guess Nunn was the small forward in that alignment. But again, because the Heat were without Jimmy Butler and they started Iguodala at the 4, they basically didn't have any other options at the 3. Although they played Kendrick Nunn over Mo Harkless at the 3 in this game, so that probably doesn't say a lot of great things about what they think about Harkless. But moving on to let's check out the Hornets. They blew out the Mavericks, and they got 60 points off the bench in this game behind LaMelo Ball. 22 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 7 of 10 from the field, 4 of 5 on threes. And Miles Bridges, 20 points, 16 rebounds, 6 of 9 from the field, 4 of 6 on threes. So Devontae Graham, he's ice cold to start the year. 12 points per game on only 31% shooting. If that holds, I'll probably drop his rating. And LaMelo Ball, comparatively, is averaging 10 points a game on 45% shooting in only 20 minutes a game. So right now, he's the better player, and he could take the starting job from Graham over the course of January. I think that would actually make sense, because since Graham is a scorer, he would be able to fill the 6-man role off the bench. And I think LaMelo plays well next to Terry Rozier, since Rozier is an undersized 2 to begin with, and Ball is a very good rebounder for a point guard. So we're going to edit Ball's rating a little bit. We're going to bump his 3-point rating as... I don't have his stats on me for the 3-point shot. Well, never mind. I think he's 8 of 15 on the league for the season, rather, if memory serves. So, and then he percentage-wise, he's pretty poor in Australia. So bumping him up, since it's clear that he's going to shoot better than that at the NBA level, I think is fine. And let's bump his rebound rating. And that bumps his overall up by a point. And I wouldn't be surprised if both of these players were like an 80 overall in like 2 weeks, I would say. And let's also work on Bridges. And let's see. Bump his 3-point rating, 2 points. So I guess why are we doing that? So Bridges, he's shooting much better than his first 2 years. His rebound numbers are through the roof right now. His defensive rebounding percentage is 29%, which is almost double last season's 15%. That's like a 30-point difference attribute-wise. And his block rate is also nearly tripled with the switch to power forward. So because he's shooting well, we're going to just a slight boost to his 3-point rating. And then where's his block? Just put that to a 70. And we're going to give him a 20-point increase to his defensive rebound rating. Makes him a 79 overall. And Bridges is outplaying P.J. Washington right now. So it's possible that there's a lineup change especially once Cody Zeller gets healthy. As right now, Washington's kind of playing the small ball 5. with Zeller out, so he'll leave the game. Bridges will come in, and then Washington will back up Biombo. So I don't anticipate them making a starting lineup change maybe in a month or two. So going over to the Lakers, I have not had any Lakers notes through 5 games. LeBron 26, 5 and 8, Davis 8 and 3, and Dennis Schroeder 21, 4 and 4. They haven't had any crazy games. They've just been remarkably consistent. And speaking of consistent, this was LeBron's 1,000th consecutive game scoring double figures. That is a record that will probably last the rest of our lives, for what it's worth. I think the next closest is Michael Jordan at like 866, I think. So LeBron beat that by 140 games and is still going. So, props to him. What a career he's had. It'll be interesting to see how long he's able to extend that. Can he get to 1,100, which would be next year, or 1,200, which would be, he would be 38 at that point. We'll see. And one player who had a good game was Wes Matthews, 18 points on 6 of 6 from the three-point line. So he's already got a pretty solid three-point rating, but if he has a couple more games like that, that'll probably go up. Dallas, they are struggling. 12 points and 5 assists for Luka. 4 of 10 from the field, though, and 0 of 5 on threes. Josh Richardson, 4 points on 1 of 10 shooting. 0 of 4 on threes. He played 27 minutes. And Trey Burke, 3 points, 1 of 9 from the field. So they also lost James Johnson in this game. He headbutted Cody Martin during an altercation, so he might be looking at a suspension. The team is struggling really badly right now. If they're not getting any type of offensive production from their front court without Porzingis, so on nights where the backcourt struggles to score, things are going to be really ugly. They are in desperate need for Porzingis to come back. He's really the glue for this team right now. And going over to the Nets. We talked a lot about the Hawks, about that game. Not a ton of notes for the Nets, though. Lots of good games for everybody on the team, but as we discussed before, the Hawks are, a bad defensive team, so it makes sense for everybody to get theirs. Kyrie had 25 points, 6 assists, 10 of 27 from the field, 3 of 11 from 3, 27 shots on 25 points on 27 shots isn't great, but he did win the fourth quarter battle with Trae Young. Kevin Durant, he had 33 points, 11 rebounds, 8 assists, 11 of 22 from the field, 2 of 6 on threes, 9 of 9 from the line. He's basically the same player that he was before he got hurt, maybe a slightly less aggressive, but that may may as well be due to his age rather than like the injury that he's coming off of. So it's good to see that the Achilles tear used to be the death knell to an NBA player's career, but players like Kevin Durant, John Wall, and Rudy Gay have continued to be effective coming off it. So I think that's one of the benefits from the NBA playing a less physical style. If you're going to be playing a more physical style like they did in like the 80s and 90s, then yeah, tearing your Achilles is going to be a big deal because, you're going to be in pain after every game. But, if he's just chilling and not really taking too many hard hits, then, should be good. It's going to extend a lot of players' careers. Joe Harris, 23 points, 8 of 11 from the field, 6 of 8 on threes. And Taurean Prince and Landry Shamet combined for 26 points, 10 of 10 from the field, 4 of 4 on threes. So even the role players couldn't miss in that game. And it's good to see Shamet bounce back from an 0-for-9 game at the very least. Timothé Luwawu-Cabarrot started at shooting guard again, so I changed his position. And I'm still... Caris LeVert is spending enough time at the one that I'm okay leaving him at that position. Shamet was mostly subbing in for Joe Harris in this game. so I'm okay with him as a 2. And now that he's playing more next to LeVert and Kyrie, he's not really running the. He's back to his usual role of just being a 3-point shooter rather than. Well, he was always going to be a 3-point shooter, but he's coming in for other 3-point shooters now. He's not playing like a hybrid role as a playmaker or anything. Going over the Spurs. LaMarcus Aldridge rested this game, so Jakob Poeltl, he started in his place with Drew Eubanks absorbing Aldridge's minutes. Mentioned in the last episode that Aldridge has been struggling, so let's see if the rest helps him get right. DeMar DeRozan continued the fantastic year he's having. He had 23 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, 7 of 12 from the field, and 1 of 1 on threes. So we're going to adjust his ratings a little bit. He's averaging 22 points per game and a career-high 8 assists per game. He's 4 of 9 on threes through 4 games. So 4 threes in 4 games compared to 9 of 35 last year through 68 games. So last year, 9 threes made in 68 games. And if we look at his previous 2 years, he hit 16 threes over 145 games. At the current rate, he's probably going to eclipse his 2-year total by the end of January. So we're going to bump his 3-point rating up just a little bit to make him, at least respectable. And we're going to bump up his pass ratings as he is the primary facilitator on this team. And that bumps his overall rating up a point. We're also going to adjust his 3-point tendency just by like 10 points. And DeJounte Murray is the other playmaker on this team. He's having a great year. 29, 7, and 7 in this game. 12 of 19 from the field. 2 of 3 on threes. He's averaging 19 points, 8 rebounds, and 7 assists on 55% shooting. His assist percentage rate this year is 35%. That's up from 23% last year, so a 33% increase. So we are also going to boost his pass ratings. And that boosts his overall rating by a point. And going over to the Blazers to finish things off. Dame Lillard, 20 points on 3 of 14 shooting, over 8 on threes, although he was 14 of 15 from the line to salvage his night. And CJ McCollum, he had 25 points on 8 of 17 shooting. Another subpar game for Lillard. It's starting to feel like he might have slipped a little bit, but that CJ is elevating his game to compensate, at least through the first 4 games. And Enes Kanter, he had 10 points and 10 rebounds. He's averaging 12 points and 10 rebounds in only 23 minutes off the bench, so he is playing at a very high level, much better than he did last year. So it makes a solid 1-2 punch in the front court. And speaking of the front court, Zach Collins got some bad news. He had his second surgery on his left ankle due to a stress fracture. He was already on a 4 to 5 month recovery period due to this, with the end of January as like his projected return date. So if he's going to be out another 4 to 5 months due to the surgery, he's looking at July. The playoffs start in May, so this basically puts his season in extreme doubt. He's going to be a restricted free agent at the end of the season, so his career in general is kind of in doubt because it's possible that Portland may decline his qualifying offer. I don't know offhand how much it is, but if he's making $5.4 million this year, it's probably like $7 million. And for a player who really hasn't played at all over the last 2 years, that might be a little too rich. So he's probably looking at like a minimum contract in free agency, with like maybe not even guaranteed from the team, or they give him maybe like 2 to 3 million. It's just like a goodwill kind of thing. But yeah, really unfortunate to see his career kind of fall by the fall by the wayside. It happens to some, it always has to happen to some player, right? In each draft class, but sucks that it's happening to him because he is he's a hardworking player. And that wraps it up for this edition of the 2K roster review. Is there a player that you think should be going up or down in rating after the first week of the season? Leave a comment and let me know. And also be sure to subscribe so that you won't miss an episode of the 2K roster content. Until next time, stay safe and have a happy new year.